Hi, folks, and welcome to the Peel Kitty live stream for charity. I am here with the designer of Rogues to Riches, a storytelling card game, and we're joined by a couple other people here. So, Peter and Jason are going to actually play through the game with us. It's actually the first time that it is being played live like this. I uploaded everything to Roll20 so that we could play for you guys, so you guys can check out the game. And because we're all in different places, so myself and my husband here are in Ontario, and Sam is from Nova Scotia, which is where, of course, I met him. And Peter's joining us from New York, so
Yep.
pretty excited that we're able to bring everybody together here. Everybody here, I guess, has had a bit of experience with Roll20. Which is a great platform. Peter was just saying earlier how, it's really difficult sometimes to get people at a table together, and this helps us gamers be able to find another avenue to play the games that we love. It's great. So I do have some of the stuff up in the background. I just want to minimize it a little bit so that you can kind of see the whole thing. But first, we're actually going to do a playthrough of the game at 1:30, but I wanted to actually be able to highlight the game and our brand new game designer, Sam, as well. So this is your very first, I guess it's kind of your second game, but really it's your first game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you started off, the original game was Gentlemen Thieves. And what drove you to design a game? What possessed you to go down that route?
Um, I've been playing games for, all through my childhood. And I started to notice, after I got out of university or, in university, I was always kind of messing around with different mechanics. And I was like, man, I wish this were a little bit different. I always thought that I had maybe a better idea to do something a little bit more realistic when it came to, fantasy role playing or something like that. And,
Yeah.
and so I was always jotting down notes and stuff. And I figured I had an excellent, combat damage mechanic in third year university and that kind of thing. So it was actually immediately after university, like that same month that I graduated, I'd started writing cards for what was then known as Thief, and it was all of my critical energies that were gathering as I was playing different games kind of shifted and became more creative, and that was really exciting, and it hasn't stopped, I've been putting a lot of work into one game, the game that's now known as Rogues to Riches. But there have been other prototypes along the road, and new ones have cropped up since then, and so on. So I guess for Rogues to Riches specifically, I was really responding to Magic the Gathering,
Yep.
which I played many years ago and really enjoyed, but I got frustrated by the pay to win type philosophy that's built into it. I really enjoyed the sense of novelty that people had when they opened up a new booster and were like, whoa, what does this new mechanic do? And that was really exciting. And there was kind of a superficial story built onto it with certain characters that kept reappearing, and that was really exciting too. But I felt like it was really just a ruse to get people to spend money on the game. And no offense to those people who are big. It's still a great game. Like it's super well made and elegant and polished. But I wanted to create something where people could experience the same sense of novelty, but they didn't have to pay for it. They could build it into their own game and their own game session. So that's where Rogues to Riches came from.
Awesome. That kind of tackled two questions in one, because I was going to ask you then, like, why storytelling? So you talked a little bit about, you had a past with, playing role-playing games and really enjoy that. I'm just a little bit curious, because, I do know you a little bit, but, we haven't necessarily delved too deep. So I'm curious whether you have, some experience with like theater or that type of thing as well. Like, is there something that's really draws you to that like story aspect?
Well, that's a good question. No, I was never a theater kid. I mean, I knew lots of folks who were back in school, and I was on the fringes of that a little bit, but not something that I was really drawn to. What excited to me, in terms of storytelling, was D&D and that sense of infinite potential and complete authority that you had over your one character, and that's like there's nothing else out there that really gives you that sense. That I'm in this world that I'm imagining, and anything can happen, and I can do whatever my character can do, and that's super super exciting. So. There's a whole lot of there are many layers of complication over top that. I mean, that's never really the experience. I mean, there's the DM and the players and the mechanics and the whole kit and caboodle, right? So, but that nugget of storytelling was always there, and so I'm trying to dig into that and try to create experiences that are, as free and easy as possible, and try to maybe less removed from some of the other complications that come in from other role-playing games. So Roads to Riches is obviously like a very, very small amount of role-playing and storytelling, but it's in there a little bit, and like small, I mean, in terms of the scope. I mean, when you're a character in Roads to Riches, you're in one room with one problem, not in like
Huge
Faerun
campaign.
or whatever.
A 10-year campaign.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but that storytelling, trying to tap into that potential of what can be done within an imaginary world. That's what I want to continue to work toward.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Do you find that, because I know that now you've had different iterations of the game, and you have actually gotten to, play with a number of people. I saw that actually some people were even playing it at Gen Con this year.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Well, it was good. Yeah, for sure. My friend and business partner, Kevin, it was a happy coincidence. He was invited to go to Gen Con, like, during the time that we were going to do the Kickstarter campaign. So we did them both, and it was great. It was, I would have loved to have been there. It would have been quite an experience for sure. But Kevin was saying that he got a lot of good feedback, and there were these shuttles going back and forth from I don't know where, the hotel, I guess, to the site. And he was handing out the cards on the shuttle and getting everybody to participate in the like just like an imaginary scenario while the bus was going back and forth. So that would have been amazing to be a part of. So yeah, I was really pleased to have the game there for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, I mean, obviously a venue like that is pretty ripe with people who would be interested in playing a game like this. Do you find that, it's been something that people have been pretty easy to adapt and be able to jump in? Or do you find that there's maybe a little bit of trepidation with some people who maybe don't have that experience of, role playing, whether it be, having played, D&D as a kid or, some kind of storytelling background?
Yeah, there is. It's interesting to see who responds to it and who doesn't. I can never predict who really gloms onto it and who has some resistance to it. It's what I've learned is that the resistance is not really necessarily to role playing or storytelling. It's kind of almost a resistance to being creative and taking that creative risk.
Absolutely.
Which is fine. That it's people are not necessarily super comfortable with that. In Roads to Riches, you come up with a solution to a problem and then try to sell it to other people. So there's a lot of things you have to do. You have to communicate it to the other people clearly so that they can understand what's going on, and then convince. And your solution has to be half decent, or otherwise it's going to fail. So yeah, people are a bit. Some people, they're a bit wary of that.
Yeah.
At the same time, you know, if they decide to take the plunge and do it, tell their story and garner some votes and go back and forth explaining it a little bit. And there's often kind of an opening up there, and people really think, oh yeah, you know, here's an obvious solution. I mean, why don't you agree with me? You guys are crazy, right? So it's that trepidation can go away pretty quickly as well. So,
Yeah, and I mean, depending of the group, of course, and the age range, there
oh
can be a
yeah,
little bit of lubrication that helps.
yeah, yeah, totally. Oh,
I mean, I have to admit, I mean, I am a little bit nervous in these situations, especially here. We're doing it live, right? So
yeah.
like, there's that extra pressure to come up with some creative ideas, um, and that's something that is a real strong value for me is to try to push myself into doing those creative things. We personally have Gloom, which I'm not sure if you've gotten to play before, but it is a storytelling game as well. And it's based on, it has like clear cards that you place over your, oh, Jason's gonna grab it there, place over your characters, and they give pluses or minuses, and you have to tell a story behind it. Yeah.
Product placement.
Yeah, and then they have yeah, and then they have like different versions of and that type of thing. But I found that with that game personally, it's the nature of it. Like I felt like it kept being the same type of thing. I feel like this is a little bit more open. And has a little bit more replayability, but hopefully people will be able to see that through our gameplay here as well. But there is always that pressure to come up with an idea. So I guess the next thing I wanted to ask you about was this whole process of bringing your game forward, because I know that it's been, obviously you already talked about how long it's been in the making.
Yeah, you have no
So
idea. Oh my God.
do you want to talk about that a little bit? What it was like trying to bring this forward, and I know there were probably times where you're like, yes, this is going to happen, but there's also kind of those probably moments where you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I wrote the first card for the game in 2002. So that's 12 years ago. And it wasn't until probably 2012 that I thought that, hey, maybe I could bring a game to market. Prior to that, it was just me messing around with my friends, and we were just having a few laughs. And I was still iterating and designing during that process. But as we refined it and developed it, we were having experiences that we weren't having in any other game that we were playing. There were like these really remarkable stories that were coming up, interactions, arguments that were like profound. So that was really exciting, and I didn't really know what was going on. My play testers were getting really frustrated with all of the different iterations. They wanted to lock it down into one game, and they were absolutely right, and I refused to listen.
Mm-hmm.
But I joined in 2012. I joined an incubator startup entrepreneur type program here in Halifax called SEED, the Center for Entrepreneurship Education and Development, which was it's a program hooked up with employment insurance. So that was interesting. I pitched this crazy idea that, hey, I'd be a game designer and publisher. Nobody really knew what I was talking about. And
I
I
can just
essentially
imagine with that group.
with that.
I can just imagine with that group that
Oh
they must
yeah.
have looked at you like you had two heads.
Yeah, yeah, it was weird. Yeah, it was weird. Nobody had done anything like it before. Certainly not here. So, but the upshot of that was that when I came out of that, I had a business loan, and that created some real pressure for me to turn the game into a business. Excuse me, and earn some money. So the pressure was on, and the clock was ticking. So that was what I needed. I really needed a kick in the ass to turn it into something that was marketable, and not just something that we were hanging out on Friday nights with, So, so like I'm not out of that business debt hole,
No.
but the pressure has been sufficient for me to polish it and refine it to a market ready game. And happily, the Kickstarter market community said, "Yep, we agree with you that this is a market ready game." And that's once the game is manufactured and distributed, and I can sell it to retailers, then hopefully the financial aspect will improve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And just to reiterate for people as well, like this game is not out yet.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I am lucky enough to have a print and play version because I sponsored the Kickstarter game. Woohoo! And Sam has agreed to showcase it here for the live stream. So he shared all of the graphics so that we could upload it into Roll20. But this is like for our private game. It's not available on the marketplace there or anything yet. The game is still in production. And do you have a projected date?
Well,
like I'm sure it's not like a fine date, but like range.
Well, I told the backers that they could expect their copy in June 2015.
Okay.
And that's not unachievable. I'm still working on a new design layer. I mean, illustration and visual design layer, new box design and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the backers, a lot of them backed at a level where they could contribute their own card ideas. So that those ideas need to be refined and then illustrated and so on.
Yeah.
And it's Christmas time, and there's a bunch of distractions, and there's a bunch of other surprises in the works too. And I've got a new game that I want to make.
You guys will hit the ground running in the new year, though, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No. It's the question mark is the manufacturing and shipping time, which I've heard can be anywhere between 3 months and 6 months. Yeah. So, like I don't know if you saw a picture that came around a couple of weeks ago, but there was a backlog of container ships in a port on the West Coast, like in San Diego or wherever, San Francisco. And there were like 8 huge container ships just backed up in the harbor, and they couldn't unload their gear because of, I think, a truck strike or a trucking shipping problem. Wow. So anyway, these are impossible to predict.
Well, it's the same thing. We sponsored were a backer for one of the Meeples campaigns, and they got, I think, backed up 2, maybe 3 times. So we backed them in like June, and they were expecting to get their stuff out by, I think, September. And I just got them last week. Because there was a problem with the pieces that they got. They got the wrong pieces, and then they had to be sent back to manufacturing and
oh no,
all kinds of craziness. So things happen, like unfortunately. But one of the nice things about when you support a Kickstarter campaign is you get all of those communications, right? Oh, you got yours too. I actually haven't even done I'm going to do my unboxing, or unbagging, I guess, tomorrow. So, yeah. It was really interesting for me, though. I don't know, Peter, if you noticed this as well, but I had supported the initial campaign, and then they ended up having 1 or 2 campaigns after that, which I thought was really weird to, like, launch more campaigns without having fulfilled the originals.
Yeah, yes. I mean, to a certain extent, I understand if they do it to the point where, okay, we've done the artwork, we've done the, it's off to the manufacturers, then you have idle hands and you absolutely have to go on with the next thing.
Yeah.
But they were still, at least for that one, they were like, our art is still working on it, on some of the designs, and here's the next one. Although I think for them, a lot of it had to do with that they were partnering with other Kickstarters, like Tiny Epic Kingdoms or Defenders, or whichever one it was. And they just said, you know what? And I guess from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Hey, this is going to enhance this little micro game.
Yeah.
And they did that for several of them. So I guess I understand, but at the same time, I'm an impatient little child and I want what I want when I want.
I'm so glad it's not just me.
No, I think in the end, at least with the Kickstarters, as long as you're communicative of what's going on, people seem to be, okay. I just got a game. I'm shocked to have gotten it, but it was 6 updates the entire time, and people started saying, I think you faked your artwork. I don't think you ever have anything in manufacturing. So there were people who just didn't believe it existed, and it arrived 2 or 3 days ago. So I'm like, okay, just communicate.
Yeah, communication is key. Sam's been great. He has been sending out stuff. So I got to say, I don't know about you, Peter, but I'm really jealous that I didn't get to do the ball party.
Oh, yeah. Well, you come to Halifax at any time. Oh, you might be able to see it. Dun, 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 dun. So in that dark cavern at the very back of the hallway there is the ball pit.
I saw the pictures. It's so awesome. It's just a giant ball pit.
We're going on a tour, guys.
Oh, sweet.
There are the balls. So we got the sleeping bag is key because it keeps you warm. We got a plushy shark because why not? So there's BMO, which is the Raspberry Pi, so you can play like anything, any old Super Nintendo or Genesis or Game Boy Advance. It's all there.
Awesome.
And we got the Chromecast hooked up and the DVD player. It's pretty sweet.
I know, it's so awesome. I see you're wearing your ships.
Oh, Starship Start Here, yeah.
Yeah, Starship Start Here.
Happy birthday, Andrew.
That's great.
That's Allison and myself were both at the Hub Halifax with Andrew Burke, who started Starship Start Here. So
yeah, it's pretty amazingly creative people in that group. I hadn't seen those T-shirts. Those are amazing.
They're good. Glad you noticed.
Another plug.
Coach.
Also, you mentioned a little bit earlier, and I just want to touch on that before we start into the game, is you are actually starting on another game as well.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So it's called Kowloon City Escape, and it's based on the Kowloon Walled City, which was a military bunker or military complex in Hong Kong. It was demolished in the 80s, but when the British left, they basically turned this building over to the people with no, rules or regs to contain anything. Mm-hmm. So all these weirdos essentially took up residence in this place from, criminal underground, people who needed a place to set up their manufacturing business. For some reason, there are quite a number of illegal dentists that set up shop in this place. Not to mention, just people who are living there and working and finding employment. But there was no, the infrastructure there was next to nothing. There were no windows. I don't know about running water. So it was a mess and a disaster, but at the same time, it was self-sufficient. The population density was like the highest on the planet for that little, corner, neck of the woods. Kowloon is a place. I think it's in Kowloon Mountain. The pictures of it are just fascinating. So anyway, that's the theme. And what I'm trying to do is recreate the chaos and the complexity and the confusion and the claustrophobia that it must have been like. Yeah. So it's not done by any means. So don't think it is. But it's a tile laying game essentially, and the mechanic that I have to recreate the space, I'm really happy with. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine. Oh, you don't have to imagine.
With the technology we have today.
Okay, so.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. I didn't realize that it was actually a real place too. But the first time that I heard you talk about it, it made me think for some reason, I just had recently, when you were talking about it, I had just recently finished the last Tomb Raider game. And there's this whole shanty town that you have to go through and stuff. And that's exactly what it made me think of, was the crazy shanty town that's all kinds of different buildings built onto other buildings and crazy mazes and yeah.
So these are the tiles. They're crazy. They're,
That's awesome.
They're non-traditional, but in all ways.
Yeah.
So the way it's a two-player game, and there are runners and there are agents. So the runner is trying to escape, and the agents are trying to box them in.
Yeah.
So the runner is the one who plays the tiles. So you can imagine, like if this is the start tile, they've got a little dude, and you move around, and then they would play another tile. And they don't necessarily have to connect it up in any logical format, like door to door, for example. You don't have to do that.
Okay.
You can overlay them in any way. So you can put this to create another doorway leading from the bottom one to the top one. And there you go. That's a new passageway. So the only reason why it's not completely chaotic and random is that you can't cover over any of the dots. So there are certain requirements to how it can go. Like you could do this, for example, and you can make it all like, if we switch them around, if this were the base one, it gets a little bit trickier. So like this is all totally legal, but this would be illegal. So it has to expand because of the dots, but it can expand in a completely unique way every game.
Oh my God, I don't, how does your brain work? How did you figure this out?
Well,
how did you come up with this idea?
I played Alhambra for the first time.
Oh yeah.
And that had a really awesome wall tile mechanic. And then I was just walking down the street and dots.
Dots. More dots!
So a couple of other things built into that. So so you can imagine these are down on the table, and they're building up and building out. So what the agent is going to be doing is playing walls to really have the expansion of the city. So there's one force which is pushing out with the tile laying, and then the agents are trying to contract it by putting walls and blocking down.
So would those be like putting more dots so that you can't add on, or?
No, like serious, like walls.
Run, Sam, run! Okay.
So they'll put, they'll block it off. So, if the tiles are arranged comme ça, then like this wall would prevent any expansion in that direction.
Wow.
You follow? So over time, you're going to get this kind of blocked in path. Does this make any sense?
Totally. This is really interesting. Okay. So we are actually at 1:30.
Okay, right.
But I imagine that we'll get to talk a little bit more, and also because of the number of people playing, we probably will only play the one game. So we'll get to do some more Q&A at the end too, if people are interested. If people are interested in following what's going on with Rogues to Riches, or with your new game, how can they do that?
So I'm moving away from Facebook and moving into Twitter. So
okay.
Twitter's where it's at. So Twitter at Grow Giant.
Twitter at Grow Giant. So I will put all the information there for how you can follow Sam in all of his crazy projects.
I've never seen anybody attempt the portcullis with the umbrella using the spring.
I'm willing to bet just happened in a James Bond movie somewhere or an old Batman episode, so I'm going for it.
Okay, yeah, I can believe in Batman. I have the obvious defense is that the spring isn't strong enough. So that's what I'm going to go.
How do you know?
I don't know.
It works. I'd like you to read the card. It works like a charm.
Right.
I also think that's like, that umbrella is like, it's like the Doctor Who umbrella from like the old Doctor Who with like the question.
There you go.
So he's got it covered.
Works. It works. Whatever it is, it works. Doesn't say fails like a charm. Doesn't say succumbs to a portcullis. It says it works.